Sports with Nathan Schivins, WPPJ 670 AM, Point Park's radio station. Going to talk Steelers, lost to the Chicago Bears yesterday afternoon in Chicago at Soldier Field. I'm going to talk about that. Going to talk about Pitt's big win over Georgia Tech on the road in Atlanta on Saturday, and what that means for Pitt and their ACC championship implications, what that path looks like for Pitt. Is it attainable? All that different stuff. Going to talk some more college, talk some pros. Maybe I'll mention Pitt basketball just to say that it is a disaster right now, but I really don't want to talk about Pitt basketball, but there's still a lot to get into. NBA season, I might talk a little bit about that, although I haven't watched too much NBA so far because there's so much, big college football, big NFL stuff, but I'm watching a little bit of NBA here and there. OKC is dominating like everybody thought, but I mean they're just on another planet right now. And Denver and Houston have played well, but they're way behind even OKC. So I'm going to get into some NBA I think at the end of the show as well. But thank you everyone for tuning in. I'm going to jump right in. Talking Pittsburgh Steelers, they lose 31-28 to the Chicago Bears on Sunday afternoon to fall to 6-5, to fall to second place in the AFC North, tied for first. But Baltimore apparently has some tiebreaker. I don't know. But I said a couple weeks ago, I said in about a month the Steelers will be second in the division, and here they are, second in the division. They play Buffalo at home on this coming Sunday. Buffalo coming off a stinging loss that they want to get back in the win column really bad. Buffalo is already a 4-point favorite in that matchup, so it doesn't get any easier. Steelers have the Ravens coming up as well. It's a big game to prove it for both teams. But your Steelers, I mean, Mason Rudolph, he wasn't terrible, but he wasn't great either. He threw for 171 yards, touchdown, an interception. He had a fumble. Really can't have those. But again, that defense getting carved up by Caleb Williams, who didn't have the greatest completion percentage, but got a lot of yards every completion and was able to get it largely wherever he wanted to. The Steelers did a nice job stopping the run game, but they did not stop the passing game. And Caleb Williams was able to, well, at least they stopped DeAndre Swift. The run game was a little bit successful at times, but Caleb Williams got whatever he wanted in the biggest moments, it felt like. And Steelers get that 14-7 lead off the T.J. Watt strip sack. Herbig recovers in the end zone, and you still lose by 3. And now I will say, Steelers, they get 2 drives. They had the ball down 3, a chance to win. They had to punt deep in their own territory. They have the ball down 3. They get it to midfield. That last attempt, and then Mason Rudolph, they throw 2 in-breaking slants with time being an issue. And especially the one on 4th down, it was just egregious. It was an egregious call. There was nothing there. There was not going to be anything there. You have to throw it beyond the line of scrimmage. You have to throw it beyond the first down marker. And they throw it 2 yards down the field over the middle. They throw it over the middle. When they throw it over the middle, it's too late and it's covered up. And obviously, and then the 4th down, Mason Rudolph throws it out, and it gets deflected, and that's the game. I do think if Aaron Rodgers is in the game on those 2 drives, the Steelers win that game. I really do, especially against the Bears and against that defense that was missing all 3 of its starting linebackers. It was missing a corner. It's already a bad defense, one of the worst in football. And the Steelers did a nice job at times moving the ball. But I do think if Aaron Rodgers played this game, the Steelers win, which could be a big, if he's at full strength. Obviously, if he's hurt, and if that left wrist was really affecting him, I don't think the Steelers would have won. But if he's at full strength and everything, and like say that injury doesn't happen last week, I think the Steelers win that game. But it's no matter here because you're now 6-5. That defense is still an issue. And you got Buffalo, you got Baltimore twice still, you got Detroit. there's still a lot of tough games, and it just looks like kind of the same old story. I'm coming here every week and kind of repeating the same talking points because I mean, it's the Steelers on repeat. Every year, every game, every week. They can't get out of their own way. They can't be either really good or bad enough to get a higher draft pick. They were perpetually in no man's land under Mike Tomlin. That's where they're going to be this season as well. Even though the AFC is very open, I think New England's good, but I think they have deficiencies. You know, the Steelers beat New England, although they had to get, 6 turnovers to win. I think Denver is a beatable team, especially if they're on the road. At home, it's going to be tough for a lot of teams, but their offense at times is really non-existent with Bo Nix. Their defense is elite, but their teams can hang around. And obviously, Indianapolis, the Steelers beat the Colts. The Chiefs just beat the Colts. The Colts are a little bit of a lesser version of themselves, it feels like now, too. And obviously, the Chiefs and Bills are lesser versions, and the Ravens of themselves, too. This is an opening in the AFC, and it just feels like the Steelers are not going to take advantage of that whatsoever in this season. Now, you beat Buffalo, you beat Baltimore, and your offense starts to click and your defense plays better, and you switch something up somehow, then maybe there's a chance. But, hey, you could still win your division. You could still host a playoff game and then see from there. But it feels like a wide-open AFC that the Steelers are not going to take advantage of, just like every other year. But every other year, there's Kansas City, there's Buffalo, Baltimore at the top. This year, those teams are a little down, and there's like kind of a new guard almost, it feels like. But the Steelers are not a part of that new guard. They are the old guard. They're the oldest guard because they are always 10-7. 8-8, 9-8, and there's always 9-7-1. They're just always in that state, and it's just frustrating as a fan. A lot of fans were frustrated after the game yesterday with a lot of the play calling late for Rudolph. And we got to be honest. I mean, in those situations, you want Aaron Rodgers in there as opposed to Mason Rudolph. You certainly do, but I mean, That's what the situation was. That's what the scenario was with Aaron Rodgers getting hurt. He's flipping off media, Bears fans before the game and during the game and everything. But he really wanted to play in that game, but he was not really clear. Just wasn't able to compete, go out there, and that's what happened. So your Steelers are 6-5, tied for first in the North, and gonna need a lot of help here to make the playoffs, and that help's going to first come from their team improving, but they're going to need some things to happen around them. They're going to need some different things to go their way, I think, and they're going to need to show something to make the playoffs here. But that's the Steelers. Don't really want to talk about that too much because there's not really too much to take away. It's just, like I said, it was kind of the same stuff we've been seeing all season, what we've been seeing for about 7-8 years. So want to move to some of the big games in the NFL. The Cowboys defeated the Eagles 24-21, and Eagles were up 21-0. They give up 24 straight points to end the game. Really inexplicable from the Eagles. Their offense has not clicked all season long, and really for a few years now. It clicked at times last season for sure. 2 years ago it was really bad. Last year it was pretty decent actually. They were running the ball with Saquon Barkley. A.J. Brown was getting the ball a little more, although he was still complaining. But they were able to win the Super Bowl with that offense and with that defense. Their defense is obviously elite this year, and giving up 24 to Dallas at home is not the worst thing in the world. And when you're up 21-0, you figure 99 out of 100 times you win that game. And instead, the Eagles couldn't do anything for basically 3 quarters. And that proves to be the difference. Dallas just slowly chipping away at that lead. And they're able to get the lead on the game-winning field goal by Brandon Aubrey. And they end up winning the game. Big win for Dallas. I don't know if they can make the playoffs There's a lot of good teams in the NFC. You look at Philadelphia. You look at 3 teams in the NFC North. You look at 3 teams in the NFC West right now. But, I mean, there's certainly an opening right now for that 7th spot to make the playoffs. And I think, you look at them compared to, Carolina or even, the Bears or Green Bay. I mean, they tied Green Bay, and if they played again today, I would pick the Cowboys to win. I think they are, with their offense and with this defense being competent now, they're a scary team in the NFC, and I didn't see that going into the season. You didn't see that the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, but you add Quinnen Williams, you add Logan Wilson, that defense that was getting better, that added a couple players, the corner from East Carolina getting healthy, Revel Jr., you bring Overshown who gets healthy again. So they got some guys back, acquired guys at the deadline defensively. And offensively, I mean, George Pickens has been tremendous for Dallas. What a move there that's turning out to be. They are actually utilizing George Pickens a lot better than the Steelers did. Shocker. They're using him in all the field, the middle of the field, including the outside. The Steelers really only used him for back shoulders on either sideline. And there was a map that of a field that showed with the Steelers, it was basically all deep shots, back shoulder, sideline or sideline. And then with the Cowboys, it's really the whole field. And the part of that's Dak Prescott. He's a really good quarterback. But most of that is Schottenheimer and this offensive staff of Dallas seeing this as a no-brainer thing. Let's utilize George Pickens' speed across the field, in the entire field, and they're having immense success there. But tip of the cap to Dallas. I really do think they are a team to be reckoned with now in the NFC. Obviously, you blew out the Raiders, and you're like, oh well. I mean, it's a nice showing, but it's the Raiders. The Raiders are abysmal. But now you do it against Philadelphia, who has shown weakness, but has really won almost all those games that they've shown weakness in, especially recently. And so that's a really big win for Dallas, I think. I think they're 5-5-1 now. And, like I was saying, you got 3 teams in the NFC West, 3 teams in the NFC North, Eagles and Tampa Bay, which I still think is going to win that division. They're just hampered with injuries. They have been all season. But I do think the Cowboys have a chance now. I'd have to look at what the wild card standings look like there in the NFC, but they certainly have a chance to do something this season. Chiefs get a huge win, 23-20 in overtime over the Indianapolis Colts. Colts led this game almost in its entirety, but they didn't put the Chiefs away. Patrick Mahomes threw for 350 yards or so. He had a pick, but kept them in it for the most part. Chiefs had some unlucky stuff to start the game. Colts forcing turnovers. But the Chiefs just hung around. Mahomes to Rashee Rice a few times for big plays. Got it to Xavier Worthy. And they're able to get a touchdown, go for 2. They get it. They're down 20-17. And then they're able to get a big catch by Rashee Rice. Gets them down in the field goal range. They kick the field goal. They tried to get a touchdown, but the Colts defense stood up. But they get a field goal, go to overtime. They win in overtime. And huge win for Kansas City. Backs against the wall. You go to 5-6. You really have to win out almost, or only have one loss the rest of the way to be in playoff consideration. The division's already, I think, locked up for the Denver Broncos, but that was a big win for Kansas City to stay in it. They're at 6-5. The Steelers are at 6-5. The Texans are at 6-5. You got the Bills, Jaguars, and who am I forgetting? Bills, Jaguars, and Chargers at 7-4 as the wild card teams. So it's very. There's those 7, and it's the 3 teams, Houston, Kansas City, and the Steelers there. That's 10 teams there, but that's really all that there is in the AFC now. Everybody else is not good. So it'll be 10 teams for 7 spots going down the stretch in the AFC, and that'll be exciting and interesting. Obviously, if you're a Steeler fan, you want the Steelers to make the playoffs right now. If the season ended today, for really the first time all season, they would be out of the playoffs, which is crazy to think about. But I mean, they've lost a lot of. I mean, they were 4-1, now they're 6-5. So a lot to reevaluate there with the Steelers. But big win for Kansas City. For the Colts, you're still leading the division, but Jaguars win. They're 7-4. Houston 6-5, and they play you twice with momentum. I'm not saying you should panic, but there should be a little bit of worry there and some emphasis on winning some of these games coming up here for Indianapolis. The Patriots beat the Bengals. The Bengals almost won that game, but that was a tricky game for New England, but they're able to win that game. That's a big win for them. The Packers got a big win against the Vikings. J.J. McCarthy's not good at all. They just shut him down. He threw a couple picks. One was really bad, one was deflected. But credit to the Packers. Lions win a thriller against the Giants. Jameis Winston gets that. He throws a deep touchdown pass, and then he's on the receiving end of a deep touchdown pass. And but it just wasn't enough for the Giants. I think they could have easily won this game. I mean, the Giants are the best 2-8 or 2-9, whatever their record is, team in the league. It's crazy. I mean, they could easily be 6-4 or 5-5 at the very least. I think they played 10 games, but whatever it is, they just unfortunate for them of everything being happening to them, just blowing these leads week after week after week. It's insane. I mean, there's like 5 or 6 wins the Giants could have had at this point that they don't. And instead they got 2 wins, and it's another bad season in New York. But Lions, Packers, and Bears win. Lions, Packers on Thanksgiving should be a really fun matchup. Looking forward to that one. But yeah, it's a big win there. And then the Rams just dominate Tampa. Tampa's very injured, but got to give credit. Matt Stafford has kind of a bounce-back game. Didn't play the greatest against Seattle. Has a really good game. Devontae Adams had a really good game. Rams are just really good, folks. They are really, really good. But I'm going to take a break here. And coming up on the other side of this break, I'm going to talk about Pitt and their victory over Georgia Tech to keep their ACC playoff hopes alive, and some more college football. Sports Scuba Nathan Schivins, WPPJ 670 AM. And welcome back to the Sports Scuba Nathan Schivins, WPPJ 670 AM, Point Park's radio station. Going to get into Pitt football. They moved to 8-3 with a 42-28 victory over Georgia Tech. There's so many angles I could take here. With every Pitt game, when they win, it feels like a loss. They are one of the unique teams, I think, in the history of sports, where every time they win, it almost feels like a loss because they do so many things that you're just scratching your head, just wondering how does this even happen? Obviously, the Pat Narduzzi fake punt when you're up 2 scores, and your defense, when not having a short field for Georgia Tech, has been really solid. And you do that, and then Georgia Tech's only down by a touchdown. Thank goodness for Jakarian Turner in Pat Narduzzi's sake, because he saves the day. He had a huge game for Pitt. But just want to start out with the start to this game. I mean, couldn't ask for a better start. Couldn't ask for a better response from this Pitt team that, had their backs against the wall against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. They get dominated, almost a complete no-shows, particularly offensively. And your back's against the wall. With Narduzzi's comments saying, we're only worried about these 2 ACC games, really. But they came out like they really wanted to prove something, and it was an emphatic victory. It's kind of crazy. They win this game, and they really did nothing offensively in the second half until that final drive before they took a few knees, with Ja'Carrion Turner getting that big run. But before that, Mason Eichel getting a big first down completion to Blue Hicks, because Pitt had a lot of 3-and-outs in the second half, and that was kind of inexcusable against this Georgia Tech defense that is really, really bad. But Pitt able to get a touchdown on the opening drive. They get a stop on Georgia Tech. They get a touchdown. They get a stop against Georgia Tech again. They get a touchdown. And then Haynes King, forced out of his pocket on the run, makes a really bad decision on his throw. And Kavir Baines-Marquez makes the interception. He has been tremendous this season. Probably my favorite player on this team, I got to be honest. I love Kavir Baines-Marquez, what he's done this season. He's just a ball hawk. He's in a lot of really good positions. He's always near the ball. He has really good instincts. And he's a smaller guy, but he's able to make tackles routinely. And so he's a really tough player, and I really like him. And he gets the interception. Doesn't take it all the way down to the 15, but he really doesn't have to. He gets it to about the 28. Yeah, he returns it like 8 yards. And Pitt gets another touchdown. Mason Heinschel throwing it around. The first one he throws to Kenny Johnson is a beautiful throw. Second one, there was a touchdown to Justin Holmes, but they got brought back from penalty. So Mason Heinschel said, let's just do that again. And he completes it to Justin Holmes over the middle for a Pitt touchdown. And then Pitt runs it in. I think that might have been Joel's Goff. I can't remember if it was Goff or Turner. I think it was Turner, actually, who ran that one in for a touchdown to make it 21-0. Then Pitt gets another stop. And this time, Mason Heinschel was first and goal from like the 2 or 3. And he fakes like he's running it. He's handing it off to Turner. And Georgia Tech, everybody runs over to Turner because he was just gashing them in the run game. And Mason Heinschel is an easy walk-in touchdown. It's 28-0, but it's early second quarter. I mean, it's such in your face, like all of a sudden out of nowhere, boom, Georgia Tech, like it hits you all at once. You're down 28-0. And for most teams, like for a Georgia or something, these established programs just thinking, okay, this game's in the bag. Georgia's going to cruise, whoever, Alabama, whoever, they're going to cruise in this game, no problem. But for Pitt and for Pitt fans, there's always that seed of doubt. And I had it. I said, it's still very early in this game. Georgia Tech has an explosive offense. Pitt scoring so quick, your defense is on the field a little longer. And just keep attacking, stay on the attack. And just keep fighting until the end. And I think they did for the most part, but Georgia Tech late in the second quarter, in the first half, they get it's 4th down at like midfield, but they get bailed out by the officials. I think it was clearly the officials bailing them out. Rasheem Biles goes over and he's celebrating. He's talking a little trash, but it's not really that much, It really wasn't enough. You don't see that called a penalty really at all. But the refs called it's 15 yards, so Georgia Tech's like at the 33 of Pitt now, and it's a first down. And instead of Georgia Tech having to maybe go for it on 4th down and not getting it, or punting it away to Pitt again, with Pitt's offense on clicking on all cylinders, Georgia Tech gets the ball as close to the end zone as they've been, and that really carried on the momentum. And they get a touchdown there, and then they get a touchdown. They get a stop on Pitt. They get a touchdown again. It's 28-14, and Pitt drives down the field. Their drive stalls a little bit, and they're forced to kick a 40-yard field goal. Sam Carpenter, the kicker, now because Budkowski has been sick for a couple of games now. He misses badly, and I think it gets deflected, the kick, but they're offside. They got to jump on the field goal. So it's 5 yards closer okay, buddy, this is a 35-yard field goal. You got to make this. They don't make him easier than this. Right down the middle, and he's wide by 10 feet left, and it's just crazy. All of the momentum completely on Georgia Tech's side. It's still a 2-touchdown lead for Pitt, but just everything going against them in this moment. A lot of it self-inflicted, and if it's 31-14, at least it's a 3-score games, and there's a little bit of doubt, and there's a little bit less momentum for Georgia Tech going in the locker room. They get full momentum going into halftime, and Pitt gets the ball to start the second half, but they don't do anything, and they have to punt. And Georgia Tech, I can't remember if it was on that first drive or on the second one of the second half, but they get the touchdown, and it's 28. Or I'm sorry, they don't get the touchdown. I'm sorry, it's not 28-21. It was 28-14. Georgia Tech they go all the way down the field. It's 3rd and goal from the 5, and the play of the game, Braylon Lovelace he drops back instead of rushing the passer, and he reads Haynes King's eyes, and he gets an interception and runs it all the way back for a touchdown. Instead of 28-21, it's 35-14, a massive 14-point swing that really decided the game for Pitt. Even though they tried to blow it continuously, they were able to survive in the end. But that was really the play. It really killed Georgia Tech's momentum. They were able to get a couple touchdowns after, but the one touchdown was heavily aided by Pat Narduzzi deciding to go for it with the fake punt at Pitt's own 40-yard line, which gave Georgia Tech great field position. So I think overall the defense played tremendous in this game. Obviously, tremendous play by Lovelace. Great job by Ja'Carrion Turner in this game. This is kind of his coming out game. I think it was 21 carries for 209 yards or something. He averaged 10 yards a carry, and had several big runs. That really doomed Georgia Tech, their inability to stop Pitt's running game, because they were able to, in the second half they did a much better job, but Pitt really, there were penalties. Pitt just could not get out of their own way in the second half. And there were timely sacks. I think Mason Heinschel didn't do the greatest job of throwing the ball away. He took like 4 sacks, I counted, that really he could have avoided. And he was out of the pocket and just throw the ball away. But instead he takes those sacks, and those are drive killers, instead of throwing the ball away and living to see another down. And that's kind of what I attribute in the second half. I didn't like that they stalled out in the second half so much. That's how you allow a team like Georgia Tech to get back in the game. But, big plays in the second half by Braylon Lovelace, by Ja'Carrion Turner, by Mason Heinschel with that big throw on 3rd down. When if Pitt doesn't get that, they're punting it to Georgia Tech up 7, up one score. So, and you had a feeling that if Georgia Tech got the ball back again, only down 7, they were going to, at the very least, tie the game. So, really, really big win for Pitt. I was saying on my podcast, We Are Family, Pittsburgh Sports Podcast on YouTube. Check it out. We have a new episode every week, but I was talking about how of the 2 remaining games, I've been saying it for a while, those 2 ACC games, the Georgia Tech one was going to be easier. Pitt matches up a lot better with Georgia Tech than Miami, because Georgia Tech's a heavy run team, and Pitt prides itself on stopping the run continuously. And so that's kind of what played out. The game played out like I thought. I thought Pitt would be able to stop the run for the most part against Georgia Tech. A lot of the running game from Georgia Tech that they end up accumulating came at the very end when Haynes King, they were just letting him run for 8 yards, and they were trying to keep everything in front of them, the Pitt defense. But other than that, I think they were spectacular, in the run game. And in the pass game, they did enough. They made Haynes King throw it 41 times, which if you say, going into the game, Haynes King's going to have to throw the ball 41 times. If you're Pitt, you feel pretty good about that. because it means they're not running the ball effectively at all. And they really didn't for most of this game. And that's a credit to Narduzzi, Randy Bates, that staff, and the players, obviously. After getting punched in the mouth running the ball, Jeremiah Love was incredible against Pitt. And, I mean, he's incredible against everybody. Pitt actually, other than that one run, held him in check for the most part. But he's just so good. He's going to get his. And but you come back, you bounce back, and you stop Georgia Tech's running attack for the most part. Got to tip the cap to them. Narduzzi, got to give credit for the win, even though he tried to blow this game several times here. None bigger than that fake punt, which really could have cost Pitt this game. And if it did, a lot of Pitt fans would be calling for his job. Saturday night, Sunday, Monday. So, gotta give credit to Narduzzi in the end. Credit to Cade Bell, especially that first half. Pitt was moving the ball at will. Now, I wish the second half would have been a little better, but a lot of it was Mason Eichel taking some of these sacks he really didn't have to take. And obviously, Mason Eichel's still very young. He's going to learn and everything. But sets up a big game this weekend, this Saturday at noon against Miami. Miami coming in at 9-2, Pitt at 8-3. We'll see where these teams are ranked in the CFP Top 25 coming out on Tuesday night. But you figure Miami to kind of be where they're at and Pitt to jump back in the rankings there. And so I think it's going to be a ranked matchup. And everything's in front of Pitt, really. Well, the issue for Pitt is if they beat Miami, they're not guaranteed to make the ACC championship. They need one of Virginia or SMU to lose. They need either Virginia to lose to Virginia Tech or SMU to lose to Cal. And crazier things have happened, but it's just not crazy likely for either of those. I mean, Virginia Tech's not a good team. They're going on the road to Virginia. And SMU's going on the road to Cal, but Cal just lost by 3 scores to Stanford, who's been terrible this season. And they just fired their coach. So Cal's either going to come out with a lot of fight and show a lot, with one game left here. Hey, we could ruin SMU's college football chances and maybe get a spark under Nick Rolovich, who's going to be the interim coach. Or they could just completely lay down and SMU wins by 3 scores. So who knows in that game. And Virginia, they've been goofy all season, but it's a rivalry game. Anything can happen, but Virginia Tech's not a good team. Virginia's at home with everything at stake. You figure they're going to win as well. So Pitt could have this big win against Miami. They could have this big win against Georgia Tech, and it could all be for naught because the other 2 teams have the tiebreaker over Pitt because both of those teams beat Louisville, and Pitt lost to Louisville. And that Louisville loss is going to really haunt Pitt here. If they played again, Pitt wins, even with Eli Holstein and everything going on in that circumstances early in that season. But certainly if they have Mason Eichel in, Pitt wins. But hey, you lost, and that's what matters here in this scenario. So Pitt can only hope that one of those teams loses, assuming they take care of business. That has to be the number one priority for Pitt, and I think it will be. You're at home. You're playing Miami. You could ruin their season and kind of put a bow on their disappointing season if you get a win there. And you could have, worst case, just win the game. You're 9-3. You're going to a really good bowl game. Even if you don't make the ACC championship, you're 9-3. You beat Miami. You beat Georgia Tech. You're going to a really, really good bowl game, and you have a chance to win 10 games. Like, all is not lost if you don't make the ACC championship, but you really want to. And I think Pitt, if they beat Miami, they're probably the best team in the ACC. I think they're better than SMU. I certainly think they're better than Virginia. They're obviously better than Georgia Tech. So, you want to see that happen for Pitt because it feels like they'd be deserving. But you just don't know. I just don't know here. So we'll have to see. I'm thinking, Virginia, of the 2 teams, Virginia's worse than SMU, and they're probably less deserving. SMU beat Miami. SMU's a worthy team to be there, but they play a pretty easy game if they just take care of business. But we'll see here. We'll see. It's a game for all the marbles with these teams. Pitt plays at noon. The other teams play in the evening. So Pitt will, if they just take care of business and win this game, they'll just be watching those games later and hoping that Cal or Virginia Tech can pull off a big win and help Pitt make the ACC championship. If so, my buddy Jake Bell will be very happy. He's ready for Charlotte. He really wants to go. I hope he can go for his sake, for Pitt's sake. But it's going to be tough here because the odds are stacked against Pitt. But hey, who knows? Anything can happen here. And so for Pitt, just take care of business, win your game, control what you can control. And at worst, you're 9-3 and you're going to a big bowl game to win 10 games this season. So we'll see how that plays out this week. Obviously, hoping for a Pitt win. I'm going to be there. Very exciting. And hopefully Pitt can win. Hopefully that won't be a deterrent to Pitt that I am there. I'm probably bad luck, but we will just have to see. So coming up on the other side, I'm going to talk some college football, talk some NBA. I haven't talked about that in a really long time on this show. Sports Group Nathan Schivins, WPPJ 670 AM. And welcome back to the Sports Group Nathan Schivins, WPPJ 670 AM, Point Park's radio station. Going to get into some more college football here. Start with Penn State. They get a big win, resounding win over Nebraska, 37-10, I believe, and they get to 5-6, and they're probably going to be bowl eligible. So, congratulations to Penn State here, and they're playing well here to end the season. And you know that Ethan Grunkmeyer, their starter now. You know, he hasn't been terrible. He hasn't been terrible. He's been solid, and he hasn't turned it over. So Penn State gets a resounding win at home. They could salvage their season a little bit here, get to a bowl game. There weren't too many marquee matchups this weekend. Oregon beat USC by 2 scores. A lot of people kind of expected that. The line was 9.5, 10 in favor of Oregon. Not too surprising. Oregon without 3 of their best, offensive players, and are still able to score a bunch of points against USC. They have the punt return for a touchdown and everything as well. And Oregon, if they beat Washington, they'll be in a really good spot. If they lose to Washington, it's interesting. They're 10-2 with their best wins being USC and at Iowa, which are solid wins, but there's a lot of teams that are going to be 10-2 that the committee is going to have to figure out and differentiate between. As for USC, they're done in terms of the playoffs. They will hope to finish 9-3 and get into a pretty good bowl game here with Lincoln Riley. Next year is going to be big for USC because their fans expect them to be in the playoff conversation here, and they just haven't been under him so far. Oklahoma beat Missouri 17-6. Bo Pribula came back for Missouri. You wouldn't know it by the 6 points they put up. He was not himself. He's still not in the greatest shape there, injury-wise. Oklahoma gets the one big passing play for a touchdown that goes like 80-something yards, and they had like 80 yards total passing the rest of the game. They are who they are. They're an elite defensive team, and they're an offense that, if they get to 20, they get to 23, 24, they feel good about their chances. They only got to 17 today, but it didn't matter. I mean, they just shut down Missouri's run game, which is one of the best in the country. And Oklahoma, if they beat LSU, they'll be in the playoffs. So, and they should. LSU did not look good this weekend. They definitely quit this season, even though they beat Western Kentucky here. Other than that, I mean, there were some rivalry games. Stanford beat Cal, Duke beat UNC. Oh, the fake kick really good play design, Manny Diaz and everything. UNC's bad season continues. There really wasn't too much other than that here in college football, but this week is a big week in college football. It's rivalry week. I love this last week of the regular season in college football, because they play the games on the Good Friday, the Friday after Thanksgiving, and you got the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry game. That's going to be at noon on Saturday. You got Georgia Tech. And some of these rivalry games that really aren't, the teams aren't as good, but there's still just the rivalry aspect to it. Ole Miss, Mississippi State is always good. And, Georgia, they're 12.5-point favorites versus Georgia Tech here. Texas A&M, Texas is a big one. Even if Texas wins, they won't make the playoff probably. But big one for A&M to keep their hopes to be a undefeated team alive. Kentucky, Louisville, Clemson, South Carolina. Some of these rivalry games are just really cool. There aren't too many. Oregon, Washington, like I mentioned, Washington's trying to make it really difficult for Oregon to make the playoffs here. Vanderbilt, Tennessee has some major college football implications. If Vanderbilt wins, they have a chance. If they lose, they're out. Florida State, Florida. Now we know that Mike Norvell is somehow being brought back as Florida State coach. That'll be the most compelling 5-6 versus 3-8 game. And obviously, I mentioned Virginia Tech, SMU, Cal. SMU heavy favorites against Cal. Virginia heavy 10.5-point favorites against Virginia Tech, but again, the rivalry game there. SMU got to go to Cal. Who knows? But it's not looking great for Pitt at this juncture. Notre Dame's going to Stanford. They're 32.5-point favorites right now. But hey, 10:30 p.m. kickoff. That can get a little wonky in Stanford, but I don't expect it to. But yeah, in Alabama, Auburn, the Iron Bowl is always exciting. Alabama's the line was 3.5 for Alabama to start. It's got bet up a lot. A lot of people like Alabama there. I wouldn't disagree. Although that's always a raucous environment. That's always a great game to watch. So we'll have to see with some of these games. Obviously, Pitt fans going to be rooting for Virginia Tech, going to be rooting for Cal to pull off some upsets. They would be big upsets, but Pitt would really need them to make the ACC championship and have a chance at the college football playoff. Pardon me. So yeah, that's what we're looking at in college football right now. We'll get the rankings coming out tomorrow, Tuesday evening, again to see where these teams are at. I'm going to move to the NBA. I haven't really talked NBA much. So about a little over a month in right now. Teams have played 15, 16, 17 games so far. And you look at the Eastern Conference, Detroit has won 12 in a row, and they are 14-2. The Raptors have had a great start to the season. They beat the Cavs twice. They're 12-5. Cavs 12-6. Heat 11-6. Hawks 11-7. New York 9-6. The Bulls are 9-7. There's been a lot of good stuff coming out of Chicago here recently with some of their performance, but it looks like they're kind of tailing off a little bit because I think they started 5-0 or something, and they've kind of lost a decent amount of games. They're a flawed roster, that's had some really, really good, buzzer beaters, Vucevic, the commentators for the Bulls, they're great, but they're not the greatest team. They've got some good individual performances, but they could be a playoff team in the East for sure. But Sixers have played well. The Magic's, they've been able to score a little bit more for sure, but they're giving up a little bit more defensively. So that's what you have in the East, and you got, there's 11 teams in the East for 10 spots right now. in the playoffs. It's still way too early, but the Hornets are. They played a lot better, but they're 4-13. The Nets are going nowhere. The Pacers have 8 people available to play. They're just so hampered by injuries. And the Wizards are the Wizards. They are perpetually an embarrassment to the NBA. As for the West, I mentioned it very early in the show, just a preview, but the Thunder just keep rolling. They're 17-1. A lot of people think they can get to 70 wins. I don't see why not. They almost did it last year. Wouldn't be surprised. Nuggets and Lakers are 12-4. Yeah, the Lakers, they're winning a lot of close games, but you got to give them credit. Is this sustainable? I don't really know, but they're playing pretty well right now, and so we'll see with them. Really good game, Denver-Houston on Friday night. Back and forth and everything, and Nuggets, they lose Aaron Gordon, but they're just some really good shot making by Jamal Murray at the end, and they're able to get the win over the Rockets on the road. That could be big for tiebreakers down the stretch of the season, but the Spurs have played well. Phoenix, how about the Suns? Get rid of Durant, get rid of Beal, reshape their roster, bring in Jalen Green, bring in Dillon Brooks, and they are playing really well right now. They've won 3 in a row. They're 11-6. Minnesota's 10-6. I saw something. They were like 10-0 or they're 10-1 or something against teams under 500, and like 0-5 or something against teams over 500. So they're very, they are relying on some of these wins over the worst teams right now. Warriors are 9-9, and they're a 500 team. They just feel like to me, yeah. And then there's just a bunch. The Blazers have some good performances, but they're still inconsistent. Memphis is I don't even know. Ja Morant's in the news for the wrong reasons every other day. The Jazz are playing hard. They're scoring a decent amount, but their defense is really, really bad. How about the Clippers? They were really close to making the second round of the playoffs last year. Take the Nuggets to 7 games. And in the offseason, they bring in Brook Lopez. They lose Norm Powell, but they bring in Brook Lopez. They bring in John Collins. They bring in Chris Paul. And, supplement their roster. It's a really old roster, but you're thinking, hey, this team could be even better. Like more depth even this season. They bring in Bradley Beal. I forgot to even mention. But Bradley Beal's out for the season. Kawhi Leonard's missed almost all their games so far. Chris Paul and Brook Lopez have really underperformed. And, I mean, it just is where it is with the Clippers. They're 5-12 right now. There's still a good chance. It's still early in the season, but they got to get stuff going quick. Dallas is 5-13. Anthony Davis gets hurt, and they've just had a really tough run right now. The Kings, inexplicably, they beat the Nuggets. What was that? Was that yesterday? On Saturday. And they played the Nuggets 3 times already. It's kind of crazy. But they beat the Nuggets Saturday. The Nuggets on a back-to-back. You can kind of understand it, but they're 4-13, and the Pelicans are 2-15. So, really, right now, I'm looking at the Eastern Conference, and I'm saying, the Cavs, they haven't played as well this season, but I'm thinking they're going to be here for the long run. I think the Knicks will be as well. They haven't gotten off to the greatest start either. I like what I'm seeing from Miami with Norm Powell now. He's been a real difference maker for them. I think they have a good team. I like what I'm seeing from Toronto. They have, you get Brandon Ingram, and he's playing well, and he's staying healthy. You got Emmanuel Quickley, you got R.J. Barrett, you got Scotty Barnes. You got a lot of really good players, solid players. Maybe not a star, but a lot of really solid players, and they're playing well. And Detroit's building off of their last season as well. They're not going anywhere. I think the Magic, they're 10-8, but I think they're going to start playing better as well. I love their addition of Desmond Bane, obviously, in the offseason. They've gotten a lot better offensively, even though he hasn't been the greatest. It's just defensively they're giving up a lot right now, so we will see if they can kind of stem the tide there a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I think what's more compelling is the Western Conference, because you have OKC, who's one of they're playing without Jalen Williams. They're outscoring teams by 17 points. I mean, it's just crazy. And I think there's a clear, like, 3 tiers in the West in terms of playoff teams. There's the Thunder, who are just far and away, the best team in basketball. Plus 17-point differential, 17-1. I don't even know who they lost to. Who'd they even lose to? Let's see here. They lost to the Trailblazers. Wow, that's crazy. By 2 points. That's a little surprising. But the Blazers, hey, they beat the Nuggets as well earlier, so they can beat some teams. But I think then you have a second tier of Denver and Houston. I think those are the 2 teams right behind them. I think Denver in the playoffs could beat the Thunder. They almost did it with the roster they had last season. Their roster is even better this season. And I think Houston, if they were at full strength, if they can somehow, I don't think they can, but if Fred VanVleet came back for the playoffs, or deeper in the playoffs, I think they could beat the Thunder. But I don't think he's coming back. I think they were saying he's out for the season. So just really a killer for Houston, because he's that stabilizing point guard they really don't have too much of right now. But then it's like a third tier of like San Antonio, of the Lakers, of Minnesota. I think the Clippers are going to somehow get back up there at some point. But these teams are like solid playoff teams in the West, but just aren't on the level of OKC. And if they matched up with Denver, Houston, I think Denver and Houston would win in a series. So that's kind of where you have it in the West. Some of the Kings are just a joke. I mean, I just don't understand what they had that nice run. They get to the play-in. They get to, I think, the 4 seed in the NBA playoffs a few years ago. They lose a really tight series to the Warriors. But there's a lot of momentum with Sacramento. And then you trade De'Aaron Fox. You bring in DeMar DeRozan. You bring in Zach LaVine, 2 guys who played together on the Bulls with a Vucevic who's similar a little bit to Domantas Sabonis, and they were perennially a 500 team, and they thought they could be one of the better teams. And I love DeMar DeRozan, but he's getting up there in age. His performance is tailing off a bit. Zach LaVine's really good, but Sabonis is now hurt, and some of these pieces are not meshing well together. It's just a very poorly constructed team, where if you keep De'Aaron Fox, I think they could be a playoff team year in and year out. With Sabonis, even with DeRozan, but with Fox and Sabonis kind of leading the charge. And instead, you got an aging DeRozan, you got LaVine, who doesn't really fit this Kings team. You got Sabonis hurt. It's just a mess right now. And I just don't know what they're doing consistently. They're changing up all their lineups. Keegan Murray's been hurt all year. You got Westbrook, you got Schroeder, switching them in and out of the starting lineup. It's just a tough situation in Sacramento right now. It's tough for these fans who just been through a lot here with this team. They're just no good. They're just not a good team. Really, I mean, they're just so poorly constructed, and they could have been a perennial playoff team, but anyway, yeah, so, and, what can you say about the Wizards? The Nets are trying to get even more picks. They got 5 last year, and everybody's saying, those weren't even good, those 5 first-rounders. None of those guys are really difference makers. And that's what you kind of thought, initially when I saw the draft for the Nets. It was these aren't, you might hit on one of these guys, but a lot of these guys are role players in the NBA. So, but anyway, I just want to talk about NBA a little bit. The Thunder on a crazy roll. Love watching them play. And the West is a lot more compelling than the East, obviously. But that'll do it for the Sports Scoop with Nathan Schivins today. Thank you, everyone, for listening in. I'll be back next week with even more. We'll react to the Steelers. We'll react to Pitt. And much more. Sports Scoop with Nathan Schivins, WPPJ 670 AM, Point Park's radio station.